Ads ruining your favourite cycling podcast? Sick of shallow bike reviews? Escape Collective is different. We deliver the content you crave without the distractions. We're member supported, and that means ad-free podcasts, independent and honest reporting, and real conversations within a passionate community. It's a better way to experience cycling media. Join us at escapecollective.com/join.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the Wheel Talk podcast. My name is Abby Mickey. This is a podcast about women's professional road cycling, and I'm joined by my lovely friends. First, Loren Rowney. Hello.
Yes, number one in more than one ways. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Evening.
Matt Neef.
Hello. Yep. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are.
And Matilda Raynolds.
G'day team. Bonjour from still in West Flanders / border of France.
Belong.
We don't have Gracie with us today, but we will be revisiting Wheel Talk Fantasy League. Ta-da! But we'll get to that. We'll get to that later on in the episode. First, we got to talk bike racing. And we had 3 days of bike racing over the weekend at RideLondon Classique. Plus, a couple new names joined the transfer fray. And we're going to talk a little bit about Lizzy Banks. Not a ton. I think when it comes to Lizzy Banks, we all just would encourage people to listen to maybe the cycling podcast. Did a great episode with her and read her blog, but we will discuss it briefly. So let's dive into it. Should we start with RideLondon? Because it's pretty easy to sum it up. All 3 stages won by Lorena Wiebes. So she also took the overall there. The second time that she's done a complete sweep of the race. She also did the same thing in 2022. Pretty incredible stuff. But I think not at all that surprising given how good she is at sprinting and that she had Lotte Kopecky leading her out, especially in that final stage. Lotte Kopecky, without Lotte Kopecky, the final stage might have ended differently.
Abby, I love the line that you had in your roundup on Escape Collective today or yesterday, whenever it was, saying that Kopecky was the second strongest rider in the race, which I think was pretty accurate the way she was leading out Wiebes there. I was trying to make notes for this race and it just kind of came up short. There's not a whole lot to talk about, really, is there, apart from how good SD Works were and how good Kopecky was and how good Wiebes was. I guess a few little things, but yeah, it was very, very impressive from Wiebes and from SD Works Pro Time.
Does anyone else wish we could have seen a better battle between Trek and SD Works if Balsamo had been in the picture?
I think Claire Caponi did a great job, though.
Yeah. I mean, awesome opportunity for her. But like we said at the start of the season, we thought that would be the team to kind of, and of course DSM, but I just thought Trek would be the ones this year to really, butt heads with SD Works Pro Time. And more specifically on those harder sprint finishes, a Balsamo type rider.
Yeah, I was trying to think about where does this race sit? I think, is it boring? Not sure. It's I think the men have a lot of these style of races and there's not really many for the women. They just had the Tour of Dunkirk here, which is 5-6 stages of just pure sprints. But it was pretty locked down, as your report mentioned, Abby, that every day was definitely going to be a sprint. Even the breakaways, they were held at such a tight leash. I don't know whether the first stage really needed to be 160 kilometers, knowing it was going to be, come down to that sprint finish. But I'm trying to think, how do you grow this stage race to be more entertaining? But I think it really, as you said, Loren, came down to, had Charlotte Cool been at her very best, or been closer to Wiebes, and if Balsamo had been there, we don't get many opportunities where the best of the best sprinters get to go at each other and we really see who is the fastest rider.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's at this current moment in time, no matter what sprint finish we're going towards, it's going to have the slight edge taken off because of how good Wiebes is. So it's not really Ride London's fault that Wiebes is just head and shoulders above the rest when it comes to a sprint finish. She's just so good. And I don't think that's going to, like, she's not going to be sweeping up every single sprint that she is part of forever. Somebody is going to come to match her. It's always happens this way. Look at Annemiek van Vleuten, and Demi Vollering eventually came for her, and it will be the same for Wiebes. Maybe not like the final year of her career with the way that women's cycling is going. I think it'll happen sooner rather than later, but where we are right now, like she can do this. And I think that I don't know if it makes it boring, maybe just less to talk about, but it's definitely, there's a place for these races on the women's calendar. You can't just have like the mountainous, hilly stuff. And I mean, a week ago we were talking about, Demi Vollering being completely unbeatable on the climbs. And so it's like, yeah, she's just really good, Wiebes. Really, really good. It's insanely impressive.
Yeah, I think that in itself is impressive. Like, just to see how good she is there's an awe in that. There's certainly a awe in dominance at the moment, the way she goes about it and her personality. And I think to be led out by the world champion, it's pretty beautiful. So yeah, I definitely appreciate that.
She's so chill. Like so chill. It's like there's like basically no fluctuation in emotion. But she's an upbeat chill. It's really like, yeah, it's cool. She's cool.
Yeah, she looks really cool in that jersey as well, like her plats and that I actually really liked, again, similar to Burgos jersey, but the Ride London jersey was strong. That was a strong leader's jersey. I loved it. Looked good on her.
And Cool said after the race that she feels like her form is coming. She felt better at Ride London than she felt at Vuelta Femenina. So the steps are in place for her to be able to challenge Wiebes coming up, maybe even, in a couple months or at the Giro or wherever they will meet each other again on the playing field. I don't think by the Women's Tour of Britain that she'll be on the level to be able to beat Wiebes, but she's definitely getting closer, and she was the closest to match Wiebes in the sprints, finishing second behind her in the general classification, but also in the final stage and the second stage that finished a bit on an uphill. That first stage, man, Letitia Paternoster, she had such a strong spring, the end of the spring campaign. She came into this one just flying to finish second on that second stage. And when she flatted on the final stage, it was like, for a stage that's basically like a crit, it was like just a welcome bit of drama to the final 10 kilometers of the final stage.
Poole just doesn't want me to drop her. She's put in a case to not be dropped in the fantasy league.
Yeah.
Just on Charlotte Cole, I thought it was interesting listening to her post-race comments on stage 2. She's a rider that in the past has tended to be pretty hard on herself or pretty quite visibly upset when things don't go her way. And it was interesting seeing her smile in those comments and just being quite philosophical about it, saying, did the very best that I could and I'm happy with that, which, yeah, just struck me as a rider that was on the up and could take positives away, even though she was beaten by clearly a better rider on the day.
Yeah, she was a very different person than we saw get second at Bruges de Pana earlier this year, for sure. And I thought Lizzie Dagnan's comments after the race also were super interesting. Not specifically about the race itself, but just how her goals for the rest of the season are shaping up, and that at the moment she's primarily a worker for Little Trek, which she signed for the team as a leader, back in 2018 when the team was forming for the 2019 season. And she was one of their key riders in the beginning there, and now she's very much like a captain on the road / like lead domestique. And she said she's still hoping to go to Paris, but she needs to be selected, which is, it's for someone like Lizzie Dagnan to worry about Olympic selection is not something that I would have thought was a thing. But yeah, we're in a new era of cycling.
Well, how many spots would Great Britain have for that? Have
two,
maybe?
I think.
So you'd think 5 for Georgia would be a lock, but who else would you take?
Oh,
Anna Henderson, maybe, but she hasn't had a great season this year.
I mean,
She's
last year
out
would
injured
have said Anna and Pfeiffer, but in an Olympic year, yeah, it doesn't really go on what you've done previously, in a sense. Like it does and it doesn't. A rider like Lizzy with the history that she has, perhaps, but for Anna, it's going to be quite difficult. I don't know for Great Britain. I'm trying to think as well if any other young riders have been doing well.
The women have 3 road spots and 2 TT spots.
There's an article that says 4, yeah, but I don't know who knows what anything is anymore.
No one. Also this weekend, there was the Breton Ladies Tour, won by Grace Brown, and FDJ Suez swept the podium of the general classification there.
Good to see Sarah Roy back up in the mix.
Yeah, Sarah won a stage.
Yeah, it's her first win since the Nationals in 2021, I think. And first win in Europe for a few more years beyond that. So very, very cool. And she's had a trying couple of seasons, so to see her get a win like that was really cool. And then, yeah, FDJ Suez, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7 on the first time trial, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8 on GC. So, yeah, pretty dominant in a home race. And sure, it's a lower level race compared to the World Tour races we normally talk about, but still got to win it, don't you?
Yeah, and for FDJ Suez, it's maybe not like it's a French race, so it means something to them to win it and to sweep the podium and have their sponsors on all 3 of them standing on the podium and with their French sponsors is a big deal. And yeah, I mean, for Grace, so she won the opening stage and she won the final stage, and that's just adding to the confidence that she already would have gotten at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and then with the work that she did to help Avita Music at the Vuelta Femenina. So great to see Grace, continuing on that string of good results. Even if it's not a World Tour race, it's still a confidence boost to win a race, regardless of what it is.
It's all about the Olympics.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's that time of year for sure. Well, aside from the racing, we had a little bit of crazy news over the weekend, and that is that Elisa Longo Borghini is set to leave Little Trek at the end of this season and join UAE team ADQ. I never could have seen this happening in a million years, just because she's so happy at Trek and she's such a key rider for them. But the general manager, Luca, he said to the Italian media over the weekend that they tried to keep her, but yes, she will be leaving the team at the end of the year. And according to reports, she's impressed with how UAE wants to grow as a women's team in the future, and so she agreed to go there for an undisclosed amount of years.
Yeah, Lamborghini. I think it's a very Italian team. The staff there are Italian. They all seem to be speaking Italian when you're around their sort of services at races and things like that. So there seems to be quite an Italian flair there, but also a team that I think has had to, it's had a lot of changes, and you got to sort of get through those changes. You're absorbing the team, Valcar team, and just getting through that as well. They're probably at the point now where they can move forward a little bit more with plans and developing riders, and also bringing in some more senior riders. And you would expect with their major sponsor that they would have the funds to do that as well. So yeah, I think again, it's just so exciting on where everyone's going to be next year, and also just how high the tide will be. And, it's lifting all ships, which is just really exciting.
For Elisa, a lot of the top Italians we have on the scene started at Valcar and then maybe moved on to other teams, like Elisa Balsamo, for example. But Elisa Longo Borghini was never at Valcar. She took a less traditional route into the Women's World Tour. She was at High Tech Products before she signed for Wiggle, and then was at Trek. So she's actually never been, apart from her very first year in 2011 on Top Girls Fassa Bortolo, she's never been on an Italian team. She's been on a Norwegian team, a British team, and an American team for her entire career. So it'll be pretty cool to see her go to an Italian team that's, mostly Italian team later in her career, and she's still only 32, so it's not like she's approaching the end of her career or anything. Like, maybe she will end her career at UAE if she stays there for a long time, but definitely to spend some time in an environment that, you know, she's so Italian. Like, she's obviously the Italian national champion, but she is purely Italian. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that impacts her going to a team where they're speaking Italian instead of speaking English for a change.
I think I said this to you the other day, Abby, when we were chatting, but it's going to be tricky in the first part of the season keeping up where everybody has ended up. There's going to be so many changes. You know, Vollering is leaving, ST Works Pro Time, Royce is leaving as well. We just talked about Elisa leaving Little Trek. Rihanna Marcus looks like she's leaving Visma Elisa Bike. There's a bunch of other riders out of contract as well, like Cassia Niewiadoma is out of contract, Cecilia Triple Ludwig is out of contract, Grace Brown's out of contract. Like, there's going to be all kinds of musical chairs going on, and it's going to be I don't envy the commentators in the first part of next season, that's for sure.
I think it's the biggest shakeup we've probably seen in forever, actually.
Yeah.
If I think about it.
And I think it's so positive, though, because everyone's would be moving, you would expect, for more money or better conditions, and those that are staying are doing the same. And I think it's coming at a really good time. Potentially it could be one more year again, but just with the enormous growth and return that women's cycling has seen, that I really hope, you would hope that their agents are talking far bigger contracts in being able to show, you know, the return that they're getting for their teams and the sport and the coverage. I think is just, really exciting for the sport as well. But is there any discussion around, are there any new teams? Like, is there any discussion about Bora? From my understanding, like Ineos, Pauline Fervan, you don't know who I mean, the world champion XC who dominated and won on the weekend. She made it very clear that this would be her last year mountain biking, and probably she will be returning to the road, which is, you know, that could be an SD Works rider. But it doesn't sound like they would be. Ineos are looking for a women's team. Bora is the only one. Is there another men's team potentially, because they've got the funds? But that was my only thought, if there was another team being created for these opportunities. But speaking to the riders at the moment in the peloton, it feels like 75% of the peloton is on a contract year. And one of them was saying at the Vuelta recently, just in the Gruppetto, it was like a networking session. It was like everyone was on the chat, and you know, it's very much, if it's a conversation for us, it's certainly at the forefront of riders. And remembering, it's not meant to be signed until after August, and that feels like if you're not in it already, you're almost missing out. So there must be a lot of scrambling, I imagine, going on, and moving pieces.
Yeah, I've not heard anything about a new team. I know there was a little bit of rumblings about an Ineos team for a little while, but I think that was mostly based on that they have Pauline Van Prevot on the mountain bike, but not based on any actual information about there being a women's road team, Ineos road team. And I think if there was a new team cropping up next year, we'd maybe hear about it by now. But man, you never know. Some of these teams just like come out of the woodwork. But if there is a new team, I hope they've got their ducks in a row, because I was chatting with an agent the other day, and they were telling me that the amount of contracts they've already signed that have already gone through their hands is just insane compared to the years previously. How they've not seen a number below a certain point at all yet, that everyone is signing for more money, and there is good and bad to that. The gap is growing between the top teams and everyone else. It's going to be massive next year, that gap. And we're not quite sure how the pro team category that is going to be introduced next year is going to factor into that growing gap, if that's going to help at all, or what the even the details are around that. From the UCI side, the minimum salary and whatnot. but it is like a very, very different animal this year. The contract negotiations and rider signings has just been wild. And I can't wrap my head around how different the Peloton is going to look next year. There are at least 4 riders leaving Visma Lease Bike. Rumors over the weekend pointed Rihanna Marcus and Anna Henderson to Little Trek, maybe. Which, man, if they're like scooping up, they're like building my dream team over there. But Elisa would be on it, so never mind. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's just insane to see, and we've also never had, like, we've never talked about it this early in the season before, ever. It's always been August, and even if you'd heard rumors, it was August at the earliest. It was never this early. And I remember like signing contracts in October. Now, if you're looking for a contract in August, like you're late. You're late to the game. It's just nuts. Should we talk a little bit about Lizzy Banks and then move on to the draft, the dreaded draft?
Dun, dun, dun.
So Lizzy Banks last week released a bombshell blog post and a few interviews about why she's been absent for the last 9 months. And whenever we ask members for questions, whenever we do like listener question episodes or anything, I swear I always get at least 1 or 2 that are like, do you know where Lizzy Banks is? Because people just love Lizzy. She's a fan favorite for good reason. And she's always been a really strong rider in the Peloton and advocate for women's cycling. And she just kind of fell off the radar after the Giro last year. And we all knew, because she's been pretty open about it, that she's been struggling with health and injury issues over the last couple of years. After her Giro stage win in 2020, in 2021, I believe she crashed and had a pretty nasty concussion. She came back to the Peloton in 2022 and got COVID and had inflammation of the heart lining. So she was pretty much out for all of 2022 with health issues. And then finally came back in 2023 with EF Tibco, Silicon Valley Bank, and was not quite where she was before all of the health problems in the 2 years after COVID, but after the COVID pandemic. But I think we all thought it was just a matter of time before she was back at that level. And then she crashed in the Giro, and then she just disappeared. And I think a lot of people thought that it was because maybe she'd got another concussion. Her concussion was so bad the couple years before that it would have, another concussion so soon would have taken her out. But the speculation was finally ended when she announced that she'd received 2 positive doping tests, or 2 adverse analytical findings, right after the Giro, and she was fighting those charges for the last 9 months. And her blog post is very lengthy, but like kind of crazy when you're reading through it. I wrote a little bit about it on the Wheel Talk newsletter, and I don't think that the conversation around this is whether or not Lizzy doped. I don't think that is the conversation at all. I think the conversation is about more what Lizzy said in her blog post, because we don't really see doping on the women's side. That doesn't mean it's not there. Human beings are human beings, but we've seen this Sherry Bussett case where, she's been claiming contamination, and they always do, right? But Lizzy Banks laid out a very good argument for why her case specifically was contamination, and what went wrong within WADA and UK anti-doping that led to her positive test. One of the 2 was her inhaler that she needs for her asthma. But because she tested positive for a diuretic, that basically made her medical exemption for the inhaler like null. So then she gets 2 positive tests for that. And the levels at which the diuretic was found, but then all the research that Lizzy did after the positive test, that is basically all just about the issues within WADA's system and how anything can be contaminated, and WADA knew it and put out a statement, like loose statement about it years ago, but hasn't really informed athletes of it, and how other athletes are going through this at the moment. There's an ultra runner who just recently tested positive for the same thing, and he said on his Instagram that he's just like dumbfounded how it could have happened. And yeah, the whole thing is just like kind of wild and insane to think about from an athlete's point of view, because like Loren and Tills, you'll know how it's drilled into our heads to not take any supplements that haven't been batch tested, and that we know where they're coming from, and we know that they're not contaminated, that the bottle can, like, how the bottle is made can make them contaminated and all that stuff. Like, that's just drilled into your head. But that Lizzy found out on the first day of her, when she'd received the news that pharmaceuticals can be contaminated, which is terrifying. And so that's like one huge part of it, is all of that information that we got from Lizzy's blog, but also the damage that it did to her mentally and physically to be going through this, because as we know, and you can like, I don't recommend it, but you can go on Twitter and see all the people who think she's done something wrong, and like that the general reaction from people is like, oh, you got an adverse analytical finding, you're doping, you're guilty, you should be banned. Like, people just rip you apart. And like, even like, fuck, look at Lizzy Deignan. To this day, if I publish a story about Lizzy Deignan, there are people in the comments calling her a doper, even though she's never once tested positive for doping ever. She had 3 missed tests because of family. One was a family thing, one was the tester's fault, which is why it got erased from the record and why she was able to race the Rio Olympics. And that was a whole big thing. But to this day, people still call her a doper because of that. And when Lizzy found out, I think a lot of the trauma that she then had to go through was just the reaction that people would have to her, and that her career was ruined. And the whole thing is just like a really heartbreaking story, and also just terrifying, especially if you're an athlete or you live with an athlete or you care about an athlete or anything.
Yeah, I think you summed it up as how much I'm feeling there, Abby, on particularly the end there, on how extremely sad it was, but then also how terrifying it is. I felt absolutely sick reading the blog post, more from the fact of feeling for Lizzy and just that heartbreak of what she'd gone through, but then also just, you can't erase that. That's and most, you know, and it would seem that there's just nothing else she could have done to have avoided that situation. I too was thinking of you know, Shari Bissett here in Belgium. You know, I am on the whereabouts, and I understand how easy it could be to miss a test every single night. You guys know, but you have to tell this app where you are. And that might be fine for the general public who are in their homes, you know, 90% of the year. But for traveling athletes, you are in so many, and racing athletes in so many different accommodations. And so I find that really scary. Even though I don't think I'm good enough to be on the whereabouts, I am. And but yeah, just coming back to Shari, is that just even riding here through Belgium, the amount of pesticides that is in the fields where I'm riding, I can taste it. I'm then racing with shit, literal cow shit, and these pesticides coming out from the fields onto the ground, being thrown up into my face, my mouth. It's terrifying. Yes, I do everything possible, but there has been cases of, you know, people think the water has been contaminated. One thing that I think, so what's happened is that the water testing now is so good that it is picking up on this microscopic contamination. One thing that's really difficult is there's no baseline. So WADA don't go, or just drug testing in general of just the normal public. You know, it'd be interesting to know that where Lizzy is or where she's based, are there other people within that community that also have traces of that contamination. Because when you have blood tests, there's a baseline, and that's where we know, oh, you know, this is the average, you're high or low, or whatever that might be, which I get can still be problematic. But there's just no baseline. I think, yeah, again, I found this article terrifying, but I think I would just encourage everyone to give it the time, because you could obviously see, I think Lizzy said she spent over $40,000, and that's euro or GB, sorry, on this case. And there's no way that most athletes would be in that situation. And I just think it's worth giving your time and energy to, read the article.
Yeah, that really touches on something that I was thinking, Tills, was that she not only had the financial resources at her disposal and the time, but she's also trained as a doctor. So she has the medical scientific literacy to be able to understand all of this stuff. And also, personality-wise, she has the tenacity and the drive to want to chase this down, and spent 9 months doing that at considerable cost financially, emotionally, etc. Not everyone has that ability. Not everyone has those resources at their disposal. So it does make you wonder, to those other athletes that might be caught in a similar situation, that don't have the resources or ability to throw everything at it like Lizzy has, what of them? And yeah, just a horribly sad thing. And good that she's now been, the adverse analytical finding has been scrapped from her record. Like she's been shown to be at no fault through UCAD, which is a good thing. But yeah, in a lot of ways, the damage has been done. And you just got to wonder if other athletes are in a similar position without the resources to fight for it.
But athletes take their lives over this sort of thing. So like, just the way that was handled, I'm just so grateful that Lizzy was surrounded. She had her partner and was surrounded by obviously incredible family and friends and majority of the cycling community. But it just, I just think WADA and yes, they're and the UCAD and ASADA, they're doing the right job in trying to catch these cheaters, but also I think all cases need to be handled with extreme care. You're talking about a athlete who has dedicated their entire life, so you are talking about their life and ending it like this. So that's what I would like to see. And by no means we're saying that there aren't people there. There has to be people out there who are pushing the limits. We know that, and that's so important for them to be under the microscope in court. But that's why it's just so terrifying, because once it comes out, it's very hard to clear your name of something like that, even if you've not done anything wrong.
I think that's the biggest takeaway for me from all of this is these are people. We're referring to them as athletes, but at the end of the day, she's just a human being. And I think when she initially put out that Instagram post, she said, please just be considerate of the fact that I have family and friends, and what you write, how that can impact not just myself, but the other people around me. There's just a real lack of empathy. And unfortunately, our sport is just so tainted that there's this like bitter taste in so many people's mouths. I have no time for the, keyboard warriors or whatever you want to call them, but there's always going to be those people that like you were mentioning before, you have a positive doping case, it's a positive doping case. And I saw this year actually with Toonarts, who is a really famous Belgian cyclocross racer. He tested positive for the same thing as Shari Bussart, and he fought it. He served his 2-year ban and returned to racing this year, but you could just see like the booing in the racing and just this negative vibe around him. And he's obviously got a lot of character, because I know, I wouldn't be able to return to racing after something like that and go through that, even if I knew I was innocent like Lizzy. She's done now completely with the sport. I mean, she's got her health concerns, but I think that aside, she won't step on the bike for racing again. So that was really hard to see. And it's been in my mind, I think we brought it up a couple of times, what's happening with Shari. And, you still see her popping up here and there in the Canyon kit, which means that the team is backing her and her story, and she's serving out her ban. She's still quite a young rider, but you have to wonder what her career looks like from here on. Because I know for Toon, I don't think he's going to get back to what he was before.
Yeah, and I wonder if like there's a different reaction on the women's side to stuff like this because we don't have the same history as the men's side when it comes to doping and the impact that previous generations have had on the peloton and on the sport as a whole. On the men's side, on the women's side, we've never really experienced that. We have the odd person who's doped and legitimately doped, but it's very, very, very rare on the women's side. And I don't know if that's more just the money, that there's just not enough money, and maybe because the testing is so good now that women's cycling is attracting more money and more attention, it will curb any issue we might have in the future with, people wanting to get that edge via those means. But it also, when it comes to Lizzy's case and the case that she put forward, it's really scary what it could mean for a lot of athletes and what it does to people. So I think those are the main takeaways. And this story is not whether or not Lizzy did anything. It is what it means, what the greater story means for sport, not just cycling, not just women's cycling, and not just Lizzy, but what it means for sport in general. Because it's not just cyclists that are, having these positive tests that are ruining their lives. On that cheery note, should we talk about the draft? So, if listeners of the podcast will remember, back early season, we gathered together with also Gracie. The 5 of us gathered together and we did a snake style draft of the 2024 season, and we have been competing in said draft. We mention it pretty much every week. We've been competing in said draft since, and we'll just do an update of the standings. At the moment, we have Loren in the lead. Tills is coming in second, a good 800 points back. Then there's me in third, Gracie's in fourth, and Matt Neef holding down 5th place, back with almost not quite half of Loren, but close.
Oh, thanks for that. You just had to go there, didn't you? It wasn't enough just to say I was last.
Please wait to the Giro. So this is why I laugh that we're doing this now. Oh, we just had to do this draft before the Giro started because Matt's at the bottom of the ladder. Therefore, Matt gets the first pick. I call BS. Interesting.
So we're revisiting this draft shortly before the transfer window opens up in cycling. Not that we ever see riders actually transfer. I think only one time in my memory has a rider transfer to teams after June 1st, but that is a thing in cycling. If you didn't know, riders can transfer as of June 1st if the teams come to an agreement. But we have come to agreement that we can swap one rider on our team for the remainder of the season. The reason that we have agreed to a swap is because you never know. A rider could be injured. There could be someone really holding you back. Also, it's fun, mostly the fun. And the way that we've decided to go about the swap is the 5th place person starts, and then we backtrack from there. So Loren will be last to swap a rider. Gracie has said that she loves her team and she's playing the long game. And so she doesn't mind keeping the riders that she has.
Oh, good for
more
you, Gracie.
power to her.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I see. As if she hasn't got baby brain and just I can't be asked.
She hasn't looked at the races coming up.
It's like
Just does not care about the rankings.
Trying to keep a human alive and rock my world. I don't care about your fake fantasy. So anyway, it's a good excuse.
So yeah, is there any other banter that needs to happen before we dive into the swap?
Look, I had to have a look at the calendar again, and my fears have been realized that there are just so many tours coming up, and every time I look at Till's team, I'm just like, that said, I think Matt could have a strong finish to the season too. And Abby, you've got some good tour riders there as well. And I've just realized I'm really lacking strong tour riders, and now I've lost Balsamo.
Well, this is your chance, Loren. This is your chance to pick up one strong tour
I've
rider.
got to pick up someone, and I'm last. And I feel like the one that I really want, Matt's gonna swoop in there.
But Matt definitely, because if you were to assess Matt's season of riders, you have had a lot of injuries and a lot of DNSs, or did not even show riders. So between, Cecily, Gaia has had some bad luck. Those two are massive, and obviously Niedermeyer and Cavalli. Cavalli was also always a long
And Henderson,
shot.
man, you've had some shit luck, Matt.
Yeah.
It's
but
like he has a
Kopecky,
great
man.
team. You have a fantastic team. It's just you had shit luck, but they are tour riders. So, and like I said, there's so many tours coming up the next 3 months or 4 months that, yeah, I had the classics team. I really did. And I'll hold on to that.
Matt, do you have anything to say for yourself?
I do. I started well. I was really, really happy. I was leading for a while there. And then it became very clear quickly that Kopecky was very much holding my team together. And then when she decided very rudely to have a break after keeping everything together for me, then it all just fell apart. So blaming her and very much hoping that she gets herself back into gear so that I can get some more points.
The best thing is that everyone needs a go at being last. And I feel like that's pretty much all happened.
I was last.
I worry for
while.
Lauren's mental health. It has been, but with this
Yes.
draft has gone up and been a little bit bipolar, but I'm worried about your come down. So just everyone check in on Loren as the come down is inevitable.
As somebody who looks like they are going to finish last, Abby, can I get you to
Whoa.
clarify for me what the...
Were you
No,
just-
I'm going to come last.
Oh, okay. I was
I'm
like,
asking you a question.
finish your
I'm the
stick.
one that's going to come last. No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm in terrible trouble. Given that I'm the person that's going to be finishing last, can you please clarify what the penalty is for finishing last? Because I can't
Actually,
remember what we decided on last
We
time.
haven't.
Yeah,
really
I haven't
nice idea.
We never decided. We never made up our mind.
There was a nice idea, though, that the loser buys the winner, like a thoughtful gift.
I like that. I like that more than the men's whoever loses has to do an Everesting.
Because
Oh,
actually,
I like
that's
that.
quite fun.
Oh shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be.
I mean, it doesn't have, it can be $5, but just like a thoughtful gift. It could be a book. We love books on this podcast.
I think it has to do. No. It has to do something with like cycling, the draft. It's got to have a little humor in it. I don't know. We've got to get creative.
It's got to be able to be internationally posted.
Yeah.
That's right.
Dedication. Unless it's just like Matt and Gracie, that would be helpful, but I'm probably not going
I
to.
need you to win at Tills and for you to be back home.
Yeah. Anyway, a lot can change. All right. Demi has not won the Tour de France yet. She's got a long way to go. All right. Should we get into it?
Yeah, I mean, Vita Music could still win the Tour de France, and then Loren, your come down's not looking as strong.
I wouldn't go that far, but I would just say the Demi Cup.
Let's not get crazy, all right?
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Matt, would you like to start us off?
I can do that. So, as I like to do, I ran the numbers and I had a look at who the best value pick would be. Mm-hmm. And I think if I've done the numbers right, then it makes the most sense right at this moment to pick Puck Peterson because she's got the most points out of anyone that hasn't been picked. But I don't think she's got the highest ceiling of anybody. So I don't know what you guys are planning, but she's got just over 1,000 points this year that no one's claimed. But there are two riders just behind her that I think are better picks. So Caroline Swinkles, about 900 points, and Talita de Jong, just about 900 points as well. So I've been tossing up between those two, and I think I'm going to choose Talita de Jong, who's had an awesome year so far.
Yeah.
She's racing the Tour, and I think that she has capacity to get more points for me. And I'm going to swap out, sadly, Anna Henderson, who has had a tough start to the year, and I believe is injured again. She's got a fractured collarbone from the Welter.
Again, yeah. I don't know if it's the same one that she broke in Valenciana or the other one, but...
Yeah. So I feel for her, but unfortunately she's going to have to take a rest, and Talita de Jong comes in.
Fascinating that you would switch out Henderson and not Cavalli.
I just have this feeling that Cavalli might do something later in the year. I don't know what that's based on. Maybe it's just blind hope, but
there are a bunch of tours, like Tour of Romandy, the Italian one-day classics. I mean, I was just looking at the calendar. There's so many like 2.1s and stuff coming up too.
yeah.
Not just the UCI World Tour.
And Henderson and Cavalli are close enough with how few points they've got for me this year that I think it just a gut pick is fine there. So Cavalli sticks around.
Well, Gracie's team stays the same. Her lowest scorer at the moment is Lizzy Dagnan, but I do think that Lizzy, I think she's got something up her sleeve. We'll see in the coming weeks what she's up to. But as she said, she does have to step out of that domestique role at some point this year. So ominous words from Lizzy Dagnan after Ride London. And yeah, Gracie holding down the fort she's still got Weavis, so she's doing fine. For me, Matt made it really easy for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did all the work for you.
I was like, oh, who could I? There's one other rider other than Swinkles that was on my radar, but it's an easy pick for me. I got to take Caroline Swinkles. Man, she's been on fire, especially with the tours coming up. As Loren said, there's some serious climbing stages coming. She doesn't have any rivalry on UAE for leadership at the moment when it comes to those races. She's got that place in the team on lock. Persico would be the closest to her on that team, but she's still not quite up to where she was a couple years ago. So I'm going to take Caroline Swinkles, and it breaks my heart, but I am going to have to swap out Allison Jackson. I love you, Allison, but just based on the numbers, my lowest score, I'm so sorry, I love you, it's not personal, and that is my choice.
Who is the other rider, Abby, that you had in mind?
I'm not going to say. I'm going to wait till she's scooped up or not.
Okay. Can I at the end, once everyone's chosen, can I run through some of the other riders that could have been picked based on the numbers? Okay,
oh,
cool.
Don't do that. You're going to make me probably regret.
I'm still just so sad about Puck because I was going to pick her, and that's why I was asking all the UCI points. She just had such a good classics, but
it's too hard to calculate for me.
I know, but
other points from other disciplines, it's too much work.
It's still 1,000 points though.
I'm just gonna go Puck right now, just to grab that 500 points. Something I should have been swapping her out right now. I'm gonna swap out Bertonzolo for Puck Peterson.
Bertonzolo is gonna be out for a minute.
That's
due to her crash.
Yeah,
at Burgos.
Yeah, her wing is broken. So yeah, let's go Puck. She should have been there from the start. I'm sorry. She brings just a lot of flair to my team, even if she doesn't race again. She's just a good kid.
You don't know if she's doing the mountain bike now and focusing on the mountain bike for the Olympics, but there's still a ton of racing after that.
Yeah, she raced last year. She raced last year after the World Cups, but the only thing is just the stress of the Olympics is like, oh my God, I don't want to touch the bike for a while, but we'll see. We'll give her time. Give her time. No pressure. No pressure.
All right, Loren, your turn.
I don't know. I'm looking at a rider who has potential, I think. We all know she has potential. She just got selected for the Olympics, and I think she could have a really good next part of the year.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Kim.
She's
I think she's a good pick.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up, Loren, on Kim, and I think it would have been probably a shout out for I think Kim definitely deserves the spot. Just probably difficult for Ella Wiley, I imagine, as well. Maybe being the New Zealand champ, and it's just cycling so hard with that discretionary. I think Ella probably Kim, is probably just at a slightly bit more of a peak than Ella is right now, even though Ella's above her in the points that she's earned. And Ella's really peaking for the Tour de France Femme, but still, Kim, it'd be ecstatic for Kim, and obviously Neem Fisher-Black got that second spot, just very difficult when they've only got 2 spots, but hopefully if they can have more of these performances, they can hopefully qualify for 3 in the future.
I know that NZ Cycling want Kim to really focus on the time trial. and that was part of her selection, so I've heard. But I'm hoping that means that, I mean, obviously EF Education are going to want her to race as much as possible because she has so much potential as a GC rider. So I think, you know, Micah van der Doen hasn't had the year, so for me it's like a no-brainer to swap her out, but it's just a question of tactically who's the better rider. I was thinking Amber Clark, but because she's on FDJ and I feel that some of the riders on there are going to start coming up, that even though she has some tour potential, she might get shifted down the the ladder in terms of ranking on the team. So it was between her and Kim, but I think Kim is a safer bet maybe for EF, but then she's going against Kristen Faulkner. I'm discussing this way too much. So it's kind of like that's like the strategy, right? You're trying to figure out if this person that you put in is actually going to get a red hot shot at getting some points themselves.
But I see EF taking both of them into the bigger stage races and having both of them be an option because neither of them are a clear option.
Yeah.
Which means that either of them can come out on top. And honestly, I think Kim is the more likely to have a strong result at something like the Tour with the climbing. Kristen is incredibly strong, obviously, but once it hits a certain percentage on the climbs, she can't hang, and Kim absolutely can. So I think that it's I think Kim's potential is like huge.
They're both going to struggle in those Rotterdam stages. It's probably the type of parkour that
I don't think Kim's doing the Tour de France.
Okay.
But, you know, there's other races. We can't just think, I mean, the Tour, lots of points, of course, because it's a World Tour race, but there are a bunch of other races on the calendar. So,
and she'd do so well at the Giro, though. And I wonder if actually they won't send Faulkner to the Giro because she'll be so focused on the Olympics coming up and she'll want to do more specialized training.
For track, if she wants to make that track team.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, bite the bullet.
Giro's
Let's go Kim, I guess.
Well, you mentioned the other person that I had flagged to pick, and that's Amber Crack. I've just figured that Matt was going to pick Swinkles, and then hopefully Gracie wouldn't pick Amber, and then I would pick Amber. But I think Kim is a great shout, especially if you're looking for like a GC rider in the Tours or someone on the climbs, because I think you're right about Amber going into the next chunk of races, especially with Cecily and Cavalli coming back up from their early season injuries, that the team is going to be shifting their focus to those two, and especially Avita Music, and Crack kind of falls down the hierarchy of the team a bit, unless it's like an opportunistic moment in the Tour or something like that, like one of those late race flyers or something like that. But those are less of a surefire thing than having someone finish like third on a climb like Kim. It's a great call. All right. Whew.
That's it.
I feel good. Feel good about this. Matt, who else had you written down?
How many names do you want?
Oh God. Don't do this to us.
I'll give you a quick selection. Paternoster, who we mentioned earlier.
Doing track.
Victoire Berthaud, Eleonora Gasparini, Lauren Stevens. All these riders had more points than Amber Crack.
I don't know. What's Lauren Stevens go? I thought the path that she was taking was to try to make the Olympics and to do the time trial, and that was a really big goal for her, and trying to sweep up a lot of points. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of points that they sweep up. I saw that she's at a couple of that team's at a couple of Spanish races coming up, but yeah, just not clear on her goals. She
just won Pan Ams.
Yeah.
Which is worth a lot of points.
It's a big boost. Yeah, I was looking at her. And she's doing some gravel.
Her main goal was the Olympics, and I think that's well out of reach at this point. I'm not sure where she'll shift her focus now that that's pretty much off the table. But she's clearly still has a bit of, I mean, she's won multiple races this year, so she's still got something. Anyone else, Matt? I think anyone else good?
Yara Castelline.
Yeah.
Cedrine Cabol.
Oh, I had Cabol. Yeah, that was my other
I
one.
had her as well.
Yeah.
Maria Confalonieri as well.
I mean, Paternoster, I was thinking because the points are there, but again, I have such a strong classic type sprinty team. I just had to throw, I don't know.
And like Till said, she's going to be focused on the track soon.
Yeah, she's had a great road season.
Yeah, big boost for Joko, for sure.
One rider we haven't talked about at all, and not just in the context of the draft, but is worth keeping an eye on, is Sophie van Rooyen from Volker Vessels. She had a good ride London, and she's going to be good. She's a Dutch sprinter, and I think she could be very good in a couple of years. I think she's with Volker Vessels again next year, but it wouldn't shock me if she's up in the World Tour the year after that.
I actually wondered whether she was already signed to SD Works for next year, Matt, but she is just such a consistent rider around here. She every 1.1 and 1.2, she's consistent top 10. Just in that type of bunch, hectic sprint. She's really good. The other one that we just haven't mentioned, but we're also yet to see take off this year, if at all, is Ashley Mormon-Passio.
Yeah, I had her down, but
Yeah.
it was a big question mark because
I know. Don't know.
yeah, I'm not getting the vibes this year.
Yeah, and I don't think
think
once
she's-
the tour's over that she'd probably pack it up. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think, Abby?
I think she's uber focused on the tour this year. I think she's singularly focused. And so she's just doing a lot of training and prep for the tour. And that's what and maybe the Giro as well. But I think she's really, really hyper focused on what she thinks she can do at the main stage races this year. And obviously she was supposed to race the Vuelta and got sick right before, so that was a goal for her, but now I think she's turned her attention to the Giro and the Tour, and that's what she's got her eye on, and she's not fussing around with any of the other races to try to build her form. She knows exactly what she needs to do after all these years, so that's what she's doing. All right, well, I would like to point out that even though Kaylee Fretz talked a big game about the men's side and Tade winning the Giro and how he was gonna, but I'm still leading the men's.
Wow, that's so
miracle.
good. That's what. So Tom.
You didn't
That's
even
insane.
need Pogacar.
That's crazy. I can't even remember your tier. I remember you've got Mads and Tom's.
Tade has almost more points alone than Matt has in the
Wow.
women's draft.
Oh, it's not the same
come
thing. You
on.
can't compare.
I know, it's crazy when you see some of the riders who have just like tenfold personally of points compared to just teams in the World Tour. Like, it's just amazing. Yeah, gosh.
Ben O'Connor saved me. Ben O'Connor, you legend.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah. Well done. Well done.
But let's wrap up this episode. We had a lot to talk about today, and getting back to the draft, we can do a quick obsessions if you guys are interested. Tills, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm probably not too different from last week. Just a little bit obsessed about Unbound, and I keep forgetting it's 320 kilometers, not 200. So that shocks me. But it's 200 miles.
Tills, have you ever ridden that far on gravel in one go?
No. We did a really cool group, and if anyone jump on Instagram, follow visuals of Harry. I did it with him. He's doing some great work with the Giro, and he's a photographer. We did a ride in the New Zealand, but it was really chill from called the Alps to Ocean. But essentially it's downhill and has a tailwind, so it was really fun. We did it in a day, and that was close to 300k.
Wow.
I think, again, like, it's just all the things that could sort of go wrong, but and I think it's a little bit intimidating, just the amount of support some of the riders have there, and I'm very much solo and amateur in this space. But I think also I just don't want to find it too. I'm trying to lean into it rather than be overwhelmed by it. On when I get there, it's sort of like America has these things where the Super Bowl is like or like the World Series, and it's just America, or the NFL, and it's just America. Unbound feels a little bit like that. It's the biggest bike race in the world, but it's also just America. But it does, I think, like inside of America, it is a massive deal. All the brands are there, and they've got 5,000 participants this year. So, the women are getting a separate start, which is,
Wow.
will be really interesting. And the amateur men aren't starting for another 30 minutes until behind them. So they'll still play into the race. But I think where this race would need to go is that the women would need to probably race on a separate day. There was talk about trying to ban drafting. The reason why I'm against that slightly is because in triathlon, it then just becomes the only topic anyone talks about, and it's bloody boring. And it almost ruins the sport in that sense. But yeah, I think they're progressing. But yeah, sorry, no big updates. But I was going to tell you a joke, Abby, and I forgot at the start, but you may already know it. So I was like trying to think of like humorous things just to keep next week light. So I was trying to think of jokes. But do you know why vampires don't like Taylor Swift?
Oh, no.
Because she's got bad blood.
Yeah. Damn it. I could have answered that.
I don't know why they call it dad jokes. Why don't they call it like I don't know, almost middle-aged women are still funny. They like why is it a dad joke?
It was a great joke.
We need to reclaim it. Anyway, I'm done. I'm out.
All right, Matt, you got any?
Yeah, just a simple one for me. I had a week off last week, maybe the week before. Went down to a family beach house at a kind of secluded town just out of Melbourne, a couple of hours out of Melbourne, and away from internet reception for the most part. We played with the family, we read books, we listened to music on the record player there. It was cold, it was wet, it was very cozy and comfy, and it was just really nice to get away. And there's something about listening to old vinyl records in a kind of battered old house that's pretty cool. Like, we're listening to Led Zeppelin 4 and some ABBA, and it was just dancing around in the kitchen. It was great. Very wholesome, very lovely. And
I'm just going to say that sounds super wholesome. Which town was it?
Venus Bay.
Oh, I'm not familiar.
It's down in West Gippsland. Yeah, it's really nice.
Nice.
Lovely. What am I obsessing over? Bikepacking stuff, actually. I'm going on my first... No, I lie, not my first. My first bikepacking trip I've done once in my life, from Sydney to the Gold Coast with a friend at the end of 2015, which is a long story. But I'm going on my first bikepacking trip since then, as part of the women's Komoot, what's it called? The Komoot Women's Rally. And it's the Lowlands edition. So it's just 3 days up here in the north, the Netherlands and Belgium. And it's with Iris Slappendale. So her brand Iris is supporting it. She's going to be on the ride, which is going to be fun. And it's myself and 49 other women, fully self-supported. And that's at the end of June. So I just got a gravel bike, which I'm really excited about. The Giant Revolt. And so the next weeks I'm thinking about bikepacking things and what to take. This is like, I'm going to try and carry as light as possible, because when I did this trip in 2015, I decided the day before I was going to do it. So I basically just ran around the day before getting whatever I thought I would need. And my bike weighed, I think, 35 kilos from memory.
What?
Yes. Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Oh my God, you're not
if
actually
you go on my
meant to take the kitchen
Instagram,
sink. Oh my God.
I think you can find photos from it way back down. So I'm just really excited about that.
You need so much less than you realize, and just pack it and then repack it 2 more times, and you'll having good bags, I think, is a key to it. But then also making sure, Loren, I've had this mistake, when you put the bag on, where you are going to like attach the bag to the bike, put tape around if it's carbon in particular. I've lost quite a bit of carbon on a bike before from just the rubbing of the bag.
I got that little tip. My local bike shop, the Steer Shop here in Bruges, Ben and Lisa, who run the shop, are like massive bike packers. They've done some of the coolest trips. So they're lending me all their gear. And we've got a packing date. So I feel like I'm in good hands, and excited to get going. I'm going to take the train. So there'll be They will be like a bit of an eco-friendly thing too, as well, traveling there. And then I might ride home on the day after, but we'll see how that goes.
That sounds really cool. I can't wait to hear about that. My obsession is easy, and I'm obsessed with it every week, but I just don't bring it up every week. And that is, my daughter just turned 2 like a couple weeks ago or a week ago, and she got her first little 2-wheeled balance bike for her birthday from her grandma. And I thought when she first got on it, she was a little skeptical. It was not her scoot and ride that is very easy for her these days, but she's getting the hang of it. And yesterday she went out was cruising and lifting up both of her feet and just like flying. So getting the hang of it real quick. And I'm just obsessed with watching her have so much fun. And she gets to the like, I don't know, last quarter of the ride, which is like maybe one point, I would say like maybe 2K, the loop that we do. She gets near the end and she starts to kind of fall apart. And the only way to get her to keep going is pretend that she's racing. So I'll like stand in front of her with my arm and go, ready, set, go. And then I'll run alongside her and go like, I said. And she absolutely loves it. And my sister pointed out, she was like, I thought you didn't want her to want to race bikes. And I was like,
it's the only tactic that works. Really. Matt's laughing, so I'm wondering if he does the same with Luke.
Not yet, but taking notes.
So that's what I'm obsessed with.
That's so gorgeous, Abby. There must be a moment when you give, I don't know, kids bikes, and if you love bikes yourself, a part of you must be like, please, like this, please, like, and just, I've seen it when, like, I've given my nephew a bike before and he was off it, and I was just like, the last thing you can do is force them onto it.
Yeah.
So just had to leave it. He'll come back to it, which he did. But that just sounds so gorgeous. It sounds like, though, I can imagine, particularly where you guys are with it, you know, where you live, that should be like those viral videos of kids just going down mountains on balance bikes. That's what I'm imagining is going to be happening. I want a little mic on her. You know, one of those little mics that you hear from little kids.
Yeah.
It would be like a hybrid Latvian English and Spanish and Catalan. So I don't know if anyone would be able to understand what she's saying, except for maybe Tom's. But we can totally do it. My goal is to get her to a point where the next time we see Harry that she can keep up. At least
yes.
That's so cool.
I can't wait for that.
She doesn't have to be like dropping cliffs like Harry was doing when we were on our walk, but just she can ride on the path next to where Harry was dropping the cliffs.
That's so good.
All right. Well, thanks you guys so much for joining me for this episode. We'll be back next week I don't know what we're going to talk about next week. Maybe we'll do a listener. Actually, that's a great idea. Send us your questions. There's no World Tour racing this weekend. The next race is June 6th, the Women's Tour of Britain. So, yeah, for next week, if anyone's got any questions, hit us up. We're on Discord, and we'll be back.
May the best team win.
Mm-hmm. The reshuffling will be interesting.